So, good day, dear students. I'm welcome you on the new Learn courses. So we will continue the online education in our university. So, and don't know me, I will introduce you myself a little bit. So I'm a Dr. Osmonov. I am a chief of the Propedeutics department. And also I'm a pulmonologist, cardiologist, or we can say that I'm a general therapist. And our lessons, it's an introduction to propedeutics of the internal diseases. So as you know, that internal medicine in general, it's the largest branch of the medicine. Therapy studied in the all courses starting from the second. Therapy studied not just the only largest number of the diseases, but also the methods of the approach in the patients, educated and medical thinking. So, but still in this internal medicine, we will split that to the internal medicine general and proped therapy or introduction into the internal medicine. So proped therapy. So propedeutic of internal diseases. It's a propedeutic of the internal diseases. It's an introduction to the field of the therapy. Or we can say from the Greece, if we will translate it from the Greece to the English language, it's a preparatory education. So you educate to preparatory. In the divided to diagnostic and private pathology. The diagnostic section is divided in the turn into the research methodology and semiotics of the symptomology. Outstanding, it's the biggest Russian therapist, S.P. Botkin, wrote that medicine is the science given the certain amount of the knowledge, but knowledge itself does not yet give the apply to the practice life. What does it mean? I especially show you these words of this greatest scientist, that it's not mean that you need just to know. It's not to need to how to you can apply your knowledge. So you can know everything by theory. You can read a lot of books. You know how to do that, but also you need to understand how to do that and do it by your hands. So in the introduction, first of all, we are starting with diagnosis. So diagnosis is a medical opinion about the patient's health status in the nature of illness. So, but diagnosis is not every time in the end. So you never can say that just this. So diagnosis, it's a medical opinion. You suggest, you think, and it's where it looks like that is this problem. But then every time you need to upload it. The terms come from the Greek diagnosis. It means that recognition, where dia, it's a separately from gnosis to know. So separately know, you need to know that. And or it's a recognition. The diagnosis for most diseases is made by combination of the signs, often without absolutely specificity or pagnomacy. What does it mean? It's very easy. One disease can show itself or show the signs in different patients very with differently, how we can say, it's very easy, so with different signs. For example, let's say simple myocardial infarction. So it's a very dangerous disease. So mostly 75% of the patients, when they have a myocardial infarction, they have a very severe pain in the chest, they have a low blood pressure, they have a very high sweating, and they are losing the mind. But sometimes the patient can say that he have a pain just in the one finger. So, and this pain in the finger is increasing every time. In the end, he going to the neurologist and say, I have a pain in my finger. Then they check the nerves, it's okay. And then someone can say, let's check your heart. And then on the ECG, they can find the myocardial infarction. So the disease is one, myocardial infarction. They can have a pain in the chest or pain in the finger or pain in the abdomen. But diseases is the same. So that's why, again, the diagnosis, most diseases is made by combination of the signs, combination or one sign, often without absolutely specificity. Now next thing, it's a syndrome. The syndrome is a combination of the symptoms and characteristic of diseases of the particular system. Isolation of the syndromes is important to the necessary step on the way of the correct diagnosis. So we have a symptom, we have a syndrome, and then we have a diagnosis. It's like a pyramid. So several symptoms can bring you to some syndrome. And this syndrome can bring you to the ending of the diagnosis. For example, obstructive syndrome in the lungs. So obstructive syndrome, it means that it's showing the obstruction inside the lungs in the bronchus. But this syndrome, obstructive syndrome, can be in the COPD, chronic obstructive lung diseases. Also, obstructive syndrome can be in the bronchial asthma or in the bronchoectatic diseases. So the three diseases can have this obstructive syndrome, what include the obstruction of the bronchus, coughing, and separating of the sputum. But then in the end, when you have a combination of the signs or several syndromes in one patient, in the end you're coming to the diagnosis. So symptom, syndrome, and then diagnosis. In order to correctly recognize, to diagnose the diseases, it is necessary to master the methods of the clinical research of the patient, to identify the symptoms of the diseases, learn and analyze the symptoms of combine them into the syndromes to build the diagnosis. So it's not mean that if the patient have a lung diseases and he can have separately two syndromes. It's like a restrictive and obstructive syndrome. So obstructive syndrome showing us that there's a problem in the bronchus, for example, and restrictive syndrome can show that we have a restricted lung parenchyma. And this is two different diseases. That's why the master of the methods of the clinical research to identify the symptoms to diseases and learn to analyze the syndromes. So this is a main task of the propedeutics of internal diseases. Concept of the diseases. The clinical picture of the diseases consists of the two parts. It's a damage of the organs and tissue and their response to them. For example, again, it's an easy example for you. If you have a pain in your hand, you feel that is a pain, and your body reacts that with a little bit rubber or collar or dollar. Or, for example, if you will touch the hot plate, so when you're touching that, your hands automatically going back. So this is a response to the damage. Then, in the signs of each organism react differently, the clinical picture of the diseases can be different, despite the fact of the diseases in the same. Again, to better understand that, easy example for you. When we have a simple flu, so the simple flu, and then we have a high temperature. Some people can work and still work with the temperature of 38 degrees of the Celsius. Some patients will, when they have a 37.1, they will feel that they are dying. So that each body will respond to the damage of the organs totally different. And never try to find the same things in the different patients when you think that is a one diagnosis. Again, the words of the great scientist, the S.P. Botkin, a disease is a life and condition to the imbalance of the metabolic processes in the bodies and react to these changes. So this is a disease. He say that is a disease, it's a separate life of the body. So when the body living with diseases and processes and reaction to the changes. Again, example, if the patient have a diabetes, he have a high sugar in the blood. Some patient, when they have a high sugar in the blood, they feeling sweating, they have a very severe weakness, and then they are sitting at home and they can walk. But with the same numbers of the sugar in the blood, another patient can again work, they were very active, and they don't feel that. That's why mostly in the 30% of the diagnosis of the diabetes second type, it's we found them just in the case. So that during the diseases we have two stages, and these two stages can be distinguished to the compensate and decompensate stage. So if the patient have diseases, so he have something wrong in the body, and this is a disease will going with two stages. It's a compensated stage and then decompensated stage. What does it mean? The compensate stage, if the disease is characterized by the fact that with the help of the compensatory mechanism, the body is able to restore the function of the organs and systems. but unlikely physiological compensation during the diseases occur against the background of the damage. And the compensated stage is the diseases when the patient's compliant upper health, working capacity, and quality of life disturbance. So again, it's a little bit, it looks like it's very understandable, but it's very easy. So if the patient have high blood pressure, so he have a diseases with some vessel diseases or coronary heart disease, and he have a high blood pressure. When he will start these diseases, when he have a high blood pressure, the body in the compensate stage, so it's a compensating with another resources, due to the hypertrophy of the vessels, the body was not showing the symptoms, the body tried to put down the blood pressure by themselves. And then he used compensate mechanisms. But sometimes after 5-6 years of the diseases, when the body already have no power to react that, the disease is going to the decompensate stage. And then in the decompensate stage, if the patient have a high blood pressure, he will feel the headache, weakness, reducing of the eyes, reducing to the hairs. So he already found the symptoms. So it means the symptoms is showing that the disease is in the decompensate stage and body have no resources to react for that. Now, very important part of the to create a good diagnosis, it's anamnesis. So anamnesis is a method of the obtain the patient data by questioning. Algorithm of the anamnesis is subjective research method. It's associated with real-life diseases reflected into the patient's mind. So you will anamnesis, it's a questionnaire, but it's where you need to do that carefully and you need to know what you need to ask from the patient. So the question is also not only method for the studying the patient's personality. It's the nature of the nervous processes, determining the type of the high nervous activity of the person, his constitutional features, which is the important for understanding the development of the diseases in the particular patients. So what does it mean? Sometimes when you will be a doctor, the patient will come to you and sitting opposite you, and you will start to do the asking to find a good anamnesis. And when you will ask the patient, for example, do you have dyspnea? The patient, it can be like that. The patient with very severe obstruction, he have a very severe disease of the lungs. But he will say, oh, I'm okay. Everything is okay. I have some dyspnea, but in the general, I can move. So I think I don't need a doctor. I just come to check myself. So this is a one type of the patient. It's a one type of the neural processes. But in the several things. So if you will have, after him you can have another patient, and his diseases of the lungs, it's a mild, nothing special, or it can be simple bronchitis. But when you will asking anamnesis, he will show you very pictorially across the color, like I have dyspnea, I'm feeling that I have no air in my chest. It looks like I'm dying, I have a coughing. So it's a emotion status, how the patient received the diseases. He very scared or it's okay. And then it will help you to put the good diagnosis. Because if the patient is very active, he's very emotional, the 45% of the symptoms will not real symptoms. Now the section of the anamnesis, what you need to know in the sections. So the first of all, you ask in the compliance. So what patient asking, why the patient come to you, what he have a compliance. Dyspnea, coughing, the pain in the chest, pain in the leg, what is meant, weakness, the sweating, the high temperature. So the compliance. Why? First of all, about what he come for the doctor. The second, the history of the present diseases. So you're asking about this compliance, when they start, why they start. Maybe he connect this starting of the compliance with something. And then the third is the life story of the patient. So Maybe in the life story he have a medical history, past illness, epidemiological history, allergic history. Maybe he have some allergy reaction to the antibiotics or in other drugs. So the social history, household history. Maybe he's working very hard. Maybe the house condition is very bad. Maybe he's pure and then he have a very cold in the house and that's why he have a chronic diseases. The family status, maybe he have a family diseases. The work story, so professional activity, maybe he's working in the factories with very indoor pollution. The sexual history, family history, and bad habits. Bad habits is very important, like the smoking, the drink of the alcohol, or he every time at home, it's a passive active, and something like that. Then, so the patient come for you, he's sitting opposite you, you're asking about the complaints, you're asking about the anamnesis. So when you have a full anamnesis, when you know what kind of complaints you have, what you need to do, you starting to do the general inspection of the patient. So the methods of the objective inspection of the patient is divided into the physiological and laboratory instrumental. Physiological or physical methods of the divided into the examination or inspection. So you inspect him with a view, palpation. So you palpate it with your hands, the tapping of or percussion, and listening or auscultation by stethoscope. Some scientists consider that physical method to be the main one of the laboratory and instrumental additional. But this is not always distribution, because sometimes you can found by your hands, by your hair something, but analysis we can show you opposite, and then your work as a doctor to find a good opinion for this patient. The term, the general inspection, is conditional because it's not limited only the examination of the body, but also includes some methods like directory examination, like a palpation, lymph nodes, streaking, the flat tubular bones, and et al. The plan for the general examination of the patients include, so you need to assessment of the general condition, body temperature measurement, determination of the stage of the condition, position of the patient. So position is mean when the patient come to you, he come by himself and sitting, simple sitting on the chair, or someone to bring your patient, and when he's sitting, he try to catch the air, or he sitting and try to show you by your hand what he have a pain there. So the body position, it's a orthopnoea or simple pnoea. Then it's a posture, the gait, facial extension of the figures, eyes changes, neck reaction, thyroid gland, it's enlarged or non-enlarged, body odor and inhaled air. The severity of the condition is characterized by the degree of the violation of the most important function of the body, respiratory blood circulation, and the extent to which it is directly treated of the patient life. In addition, the severity of the condition is also determined by the possibility of the developing sides of the complication of the immediate period of the life. So every time, remember that. Now the body temperature is indicator of the body's terminal stage, regulated by thyroglobulation system in the function of the heart production of the heart transfer through the surface of the body, especially through the skin, it's 90-95%. As well to the lungs with phase of the urine. The normal human activity is possible in the very narrow range of the severe degrees from the 36 and none higher than the 40 or 41. And period the day, the temperature of the body changing from the 0.3 to 0.5 or maximum of the 1 degrees. So after that we have a fever or febris. It's a rule of the typical thermoregulatory protective and adaptive reaction of the body in the effect of the pyogenic substance. The fever is component of the body's inflammatory response, exactly the response to infection, is largely protective. So this is a protective system. According to the degree of the fever dividing for the 4 stage. it's a low-grade temperature, 37, 38, moderate fever, it's a 38, 39, and high pyogenic fever, it's a 39, 41 degrees, and very high fever, more than 41, but in this condition, the patient can have no life. He will die because in this temperature, the blood will not move in the vessels. So dear students, this was introduction of the prepared therapy. Due to this pandemic system and pandemic situation on the whole world, I think we will continue this online lecture, and I hope you will listen this very carefully. But remember that the lecture is showing you just the field of the work. It does not mean that with this lecture, this topic is finished. Again, lecture is just showing you the field of the work, but then more deeply you need to read in your books, look on the movies. Exactly in the prepared therapy or Propedeutics of the internal medicine or introduction of internal medicine, mostly we're working with hands. So due to this pandemic, we can't show you exactly what you need to do by your hands. That's why you need to look the movie, read more books. And I hope in the future we will meet you opposite and we will start our lecture in the real life. So thank you very much for your attention. Все.